Hello and welcome to Jaw Law. I'm your host, Joe McGregor from Dallas, Texas, and today we are talking about taking advice with a grain of salt.
Any material communicated on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be legal advice. Nothing herein should be considered to create an attorney-client relationship. Please consult an attorney for legal advice on your matter.
Okay, today is an interesting topic because I am a professional advice giver, right? That's why people hire me. Look at documents, give advice. Also, one of the reasons people hire me is because we've done this a few thousand times, and so the hope is that we're going to share some advice based on our observations and experience. What I want to point out in the least braggiest way possible is that we have seen virtually every scenario, and there's always new things, but for the most part, 99% of questions that people ask us, not only have we seen it before, we've seen it dozens, hundreds of times at least, right? So when people ask questions, we usually have a pretty good data set to work with to offer advice. And even then, we still try to be pretty careful. What I want to talk about today, it's hard to talk about because I definitely don't want any of the scenarios that motivated this episode to be traced back to a particular client, because I don't blame anyone who goes to the internet to seek advice. In fact, we always encourage it. Honestly, that's how a lot of people find us. People will go to like a Facebook group or Dental Town or wherever, and they will ask, hey, do you know a good lawyer? And somebody will share our name and they'll reach out to us and say, I got your name off of this group. So obviously, I'm like a fan of it in some respects. However, without giving any details, this actually happens all the time. It's just that it happened recently. And what I'm talking about is I saw someone give advice to a client of ours, somebody that we helped in the past. So it's not like we were helping them currently. Someone whom we had helped in the past went on to a forum and asked a question. Very reasonable. This person was asking to a group of dentists, in this case, a few thousand dentists, right? So there's a lot of people to draw from. And one of the persons responded and gave this person some advice. And in that advice was an anecdote, and the name looked a little familiar. It turns out I actually know quite a lot about that scenario. And this person was not being fully transparent, with that anecdote. The reason that's important is because my client was going to potentially make a decision heavily influenced by this person's response, and that response was not strongly connected to the truth. And it turns out that I see this a lot. And this one was a little unique because I happened to have seen some certain emails about this matter that this other dentist was involved in. So I had a front row seat to seeing how that was not accurate. And I ask you, how many times have you posted a question, or if you ever post a question, consider, number one, the person who is giving you an answer, there's a good chance they have only done the thing you're asking about one time. So when you go to the internet and say, I'm doing a lease and my lease assigns HVAC responsibility to me, is that normal? Well, for the most part, if people are going to answer, most of those respondents are going to have only looked at one lease, their lease. So if someone shows up and says, hey, this is the right answer, and it's actually not, it's not market standard, then now you are influenced. And what if that person says, hey, I have this situation in my lease, and they don't actually understand their lease. And so now you have some information that you're working on. It's not even accurate. And I'm not suggesting that people are out there to deceive you or anything like that. What I am saying is two things. Number one, we strongly encourage you to seek opinions. Get as much information as you can. We live in a beautiful age where information is virtually free if you ask for it. Number two, the problem is sifting through that information. Take things with a grain of salt, both from the forum, where am I asking this? Am I asking a lease question to a bunch of dentists, or am I asking a lease question to a bunch of real estate brokers, right? There's just going to be different answers to that kind of stuff. And you need to think about that. It's like asking a dental question to a whole bunch of people, like your community group. If I have a question about dentistry, should I ask a bunch of dentists, or one dentist like my dentist, but should I go and ask a bunch of dentists, or should I go to like my neighborhood Facebook group and say, what do you guys think this problem is? And everybody there is going to say, hey, I went to the dentist once. This is what I think. And I go to the dentist every 6 months. Here's what I think. That information, there's a chance that it could be useful, but that's not where we go, right? We're seeking out who would know this answer. Again, I'm not discouraging anyone to go in, and maybe I'm just a little bit more sensitive because I happen to see a scenario where someone was maybe fed some inaccurate information and it was going to affect the decision she would make. And, just wondering, hey, how often does this really happen? Well, I've seen it before. It's happened. Most of the times, though, it's people saying things. I mean, I see it all the time. Somebody say, hey, a restrictive covenant's enforceable. And somebody's asking this in Wyoming, and some dude from New Jersey chimes in, oh, absolutely not. Or whatever, right? Like there's more complexity to that question than is it or is it not enforceable? And are you asking the best source of information? So again, just to beat a dead horse here, I guess, definitely ask questions, but carefully consider what the answers are, where you're getting those answers from, and evaluate, stack those answers against each other and compare that against what other people are telling you. Maybe not just your colleagues, but your advisors and other consultants. So anyway, just trying to encourage a little bit of skepticism on things you read online. And so I think you're being better off, be a little more careful. Doesn't mean don't believe anything, just means be skeptical. Take it with a grain of salt and do your best to do your own homework and make sure you've thoroughly thought something through before you make a decision. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, 972-975-2215. That's my cell, goes directly to me. Happy to take any questions you have, including topic episodes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.